It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Rico Brogna. Welcome into episode number, what are we up to now? 613 of the Rico Brogna. 2026 has arrived. We are about 6+ weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting. When the calendar turns to a new year, the feeling of spring training, the feeling of opening day, it becomes just a little bit more real. The problem is the Mets haven't done anything in weeks. That's the problem. And it's not just the Mets. I don't want to make this out like everyone else is doing all sorts of stuff and the Mets are just standing there. But as we begin 2026, the MLB offseason is really at a standstill. And there's a couple of things I do want to address as we kind of hit the state of this offseason here on the Rico Brogna. We will read a ton of your emails. There was a lot of responses to some of our holiday Rico Brognas, including our two-parter on the worst losses from 2025, our one-parter on the best wins from 2025, and our tribute to Brandon Nimmo, as well as our last-second holiday gift, Rico Brogna, talking about road trips. So we will get to your mailbag. A lot of different topics will be discussed when we open up the Rico mailbag. But let us begin with a state of this offseason. As I have spent time with the family, some of which involve talking about the New York Mets with some of my loved ones that love the New York Mets, I do have a conclusion that I will bring to you, the Rico audience. Some of you may have already been there. Some of you may already say, yes, I know, Evan. You're not splitting any atom. This may anger a lot of people. I know Pete Hoffman is not going to like the message I'm about to say. As I sit here reflective on what happened at the end of 2025, as I sit here kind of reading the tea leaves of what David Stearns is trying to do, I believe that anytime you see a story, such as the one from Mark Feinsand from a few days ago, in which he said, quote, about Kyle Tucker, Toronto remains the favorite to land Tucker, sources said, though the Mets can't be counted out given their need for outfield help and their general willingness to spend big when they feel it's appropriate. If the Yankees are prepared to spend big, it's likely going to be for Cody Bellinger, more on him later, rather than Kyle Tucker. What I would tell you is if you use the logic that I'm using of this offseason and where this is going, that is utter nonsense. They can check in on Kyle Tucker as much as you want. They are checking in on Kyle Tucker the way I used to check in high school on like the most attractive girls. They're not saying yes. They're not going out with me, but I checked in. The Mets are not signing Kyle Tucker. And so we can waste our time and do a whole breakdown of Kyle Tucker. I know we did that a little bit earlier in the offseason. And think about our fantasy Mets lineup if Kyle Tucker is in it, or talk about what we think of the offseason if they end up with Kyle Tucker. What would make anybody believe that the New York Mets are going to be willing to go to 8 or 9 years and pay Kyle Tucker $40 million a year? What would make anybody think that? And conversely, even if Kyle Tucker decided, you know what, I'm going to take a short-term deal. My value is not as high as I thought. I'm going to accept one of those big money 3-year deal, opt out after year one deal. What would make anybody think that the Mets would be willing to give up the draft capital in order to sign somebody who probably is gone in a year or two? So I am not ridiculing Mark Feinsand's reporting. I think he's one of the better reporters out there. But I think that the phrasing of all that is they have checked in Kyle Tucker. They're not signing Kyle Tucker. What are we talking about? There is no evidence based on the Mets' approach to this offseason that they're going to be willing to give Kyle Tucker an 8-year contract. Now, this is something I thought a few weeks ago, so that's not necessarily new. But let's get to Cody Bellinger. I thought for a while, maybe the Mets will go 5 years for Cody Bellinger. Maybe they'll even go beyond that, as much as that would cause that initial shock of they weren't willing to do it with Pete Alonso, but they're going to be willing to do it with Cody Bellinger, and the anger that may cause me and others. But the reality is they're not signing Cody Bellinger either. They're not giving Cody Bellinger more than what the Yankees are probably currently offering. And if I had to guess, because there hasn't been any firm reporting on what specifically the Yankees are offering, just that the Yankees have made an offer, they feel very comfortable with it, and they're not going to negotiate against themselves. They probably offered him a 4 or 5 year deal. That'd be my guess. Probably at about, I want to say between $25 and $30 million a year, something in that range. Why would we think the Mets are going to be willing to go past that? They're not. Now, with Bellinger, unlike Tucker, there isn't the draft pick that you have to give up because Cody Bellinger was not eligible to even have the qualifying offer made to him. So you don't have to worry about that with Cody Bellinger. But in terms of years and money, they're not doing that. And then we get to Framber Valdez. That's another guy that, according to Mark Feinsand, the Mets are linked to. The Mets could be linked to everybody. It doesn't mean they're actually going to sign them. Are the New York Mets, knowing David Stearns' recent history in which starting pitchers he's aggressively going to go after, and the answer is not many unless your name is Yamamoto, they're going to give Framber Valdez a 4 or 5 year contract? Really? What have we seen in this offseason that would make anybody think that? So I want to make this clear. I haven't offered an opinion on what I would do yet. I'm just telling you, reading the tea leaves and sitting there for the last few weeks, thinking about this offseason, looking ahead, looking at who's still out there, and also seeing what the Mets have done. Like, I'm not telling you they're cheap. They're not cheap. They're not unwilling to spend. I think they're going to spend. I don't think that those contracts we just talked about when it comes to Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger or Framber Valdez, I don't think that's going to be the player or players that the Mets are willing to go to 5-6 years for in the case of Bellinger, or 9 years in the case of Tucker, or even 4 or 5 years for Framber Valdez. I don't buy it. So what every Met fan needs to do, and I know it's tough because over the last few weeks, so little has happened. And so when so little has happened, you're just so thirsty for any piece of information. When you see information such as the Mets may check in on Kyle Tucker, do yourself a favor and realize that means nothing like the Mets are going to sign Kyle Tucker, because they're not. And if I'm wrong, I'll own it and I'll try to kind of piece together how I got it wrong. But right now, again, not any reporting, just reading the tea leaves of this offseason. Why would anybody think that that's the approach the Mets are going to take? Now, with that said, what is their approach going to be? They have money to spend. They're going to spend money. Like, they brought in Jorge Polanco on a short-term contract. I kind of expect that that's the route they're going to go to fill out this roster because they got work to do. Look at the outfield right now. And even if you want to go look at the outfield, look at the 40-man roster right now in terms of Met outfielders. Carson Bench isn't on it, but he would certainly be added to it. You're talking about Juan Soto and Tyrone Taylor. That's pretty much all you're talking about. Nick Morabito is probably going to start the year in the minor leagues. Jahan Bay was brought in. I mean, give me a break. Jared Young is on the 40-man roster. Let me see if I'm missing anybody because that's off the top of my head. I think that's pretty much it in terms of outfielders. I mean, you want to include Luis Angel Acuna as an outfielder, I guess you can. But no, those are the 5 outfielders on the Mets 40-man roster. Jahan Bay, who I don't think is going to be on the opening day roster. Nick Morabito, who probably starts the year in AAA, could get up here at some point. Soto, Tyrone Taylor, who's more of a 4th outfielder, and Jared Young. Like, clearly the Mets have to add an outfielder, and I think they will. What I'm trying to figure out is who. And so I don't think they're done. I'm not trying to tell you, hey, let's go make a starting lineup of those guys. Like, they're going to add an outfielder, and I think they're going to spend money. I think it's probably going to follow kind of what they did with Jorge Polanco, where they're going to bring guys in who make a lot of money over a short period of time. I can still see them trading for Christian Walker, though that doesn't address the outfield, but it addresses first base and allows Polanco to be more of a designated hitter, which I still think is ideal, even though the longer this offseason goes without them adding a real first baseman could line up with Jorge Polanco playing a lot more first base than maybe I want. But the idea that the Mets are going to add bats and even starting pitchers excuse me, on long-term contracts, I think is fantasy. I think what that has become now is it's January. It's been a long time since the Mets have made a move. You're in the middle of the desert and you're really thirsty, and you try to convince yourself that they're going to do something they're not going to do. So I want to make that clear. My opinion as we stand here right now is we have to think a little bit more creatively in terms of what they're going to do to add a bat to this lineup. And I think they need to add more than one bat. But right now, my confidence level is more that they'll add an outfielder, and that may be it. Is that enough for me? No, not necessarily. I made it clear I'd like a real first baseman on this team with Polanco DHing more. That'd be my goal. But is it possible that they don't feel comfortable with any kind of Mark Vientos trade, and Vientos ends up starting the year as the most of the time designated hitter with Polanco playing a lot of first base? It's on the table. The only thing I feel really confident about is they're definitely going to add an outfielder. What level of outfielder, we shall see. But Framber Valdez, Cody Bellinger, and Kyle Tucker, I'd be very surprised if any of those three guys are on this team.
Can I ask you a question? Because you just said, you're expecting the Mets to go and add an outfielder, and to what level you don't know.
Yes.
But you've said the Kyle Tuckers and the Cody Bellingers of the world, you're most likely not going to see happen. And I agree with you on that. I don't expect there to be some crazy off the, 7-year contract. I don't expect that to happen. But my question to you is, if you go through the free agents available right now, you're talking the next best after that's Harrison Bader.
I know.
And then you're talking about guys that are almost retired, or Will Brennan. We're talking about Michael Conforto. We're talking about low-level guys that you don't even want to give more than a year to because you don't really feel good about it.
Which is why, let's go through this real quick because you bring up a great point. After Bellinger and Tucker, here are some of the outfielders that are free agents. Harrison Bader, Starling Marte, Max Kepler, Tommy Pham, Michael Conforto, Jesse Winker, Chris Taylor, Austin Hayes, who I could see them adding, but certainly not as an everyday outfielder, but he's a solid major leaguer against lefties. Mark Canha, Alex Verdugo, Kevin Pillar, Alexander Canario. It's not a great list, which is why if you ask me right now, all right, Ev, you don't think it's going to be this guy, you don't think it's going to be that guy, but they're clearly adding an outfielder, who would it be? It's probably via trade. It's probably a trade that maybe we don't see coming. And I can't tell you if I'm going to like it or not. I wish I could. I wish I could confidently tell you, oh, don't worry, it's going to be an outfielder and we're all going to be pumped up. That may not be the case. It may be an outfielder in which we're like, oh, really? I mean, we go back to Luis Robert Jr., who we've talked a lot about. Especially with looking at Cincinnati's roster and looking at Philadelphia adding Adolis Garcia, they seem to be two teams that may not be as hot for Robert Jr. as they once were. So I circle back to that, and I guess gun to the head, though I hate that analogy, but I guess I'll use it, probably would be Robert Jr. That'd probably be the outfielder I would guess on. But it's the Bellinger and Tucker thing and it's not me arguing I don't want them. It's, do you honestly think, based on their approach to this offseason, which is, again, not to be cheap because they're spending money. They spent money on Devin Williams. They spent money on Jorge Polanco. It's about long-term money. That's what they don't want to do. They want to go short-term money. But based on what they've done so far and who they've let walk away, I don't know why people would think that all of a sudden it's going to change with Kyle Tucker or even Cody Bellinger.
No, I agree. And that's the thing that's so frustrating because the pieces that could make this team better, they're not enticing to David Stearns. That's what it comes down to.
And the other thing that we definitely need to address, which I can see being the most frustrating thing, is, okay, the bullpen's been remade. Let's put that to the side right now. We've relitigated the Edwin Diaz stuff, what we think of Devin Williams and Luke Weaver. Let's put that to the side. Obviously, they need to add a bat or two, losing Pete Alonso, trading Brandon Nimmo, but they did add Marcus Semien. They have brought in Jorge Polanco. I don't love it, but moves have been made. They're different, right? The starting pitching is exactly the same. Nothing's happened. They haven't moved anyone away. They haven't signed anybody. The rotation, which at the end of the day was their biggest problem last year, has gone completely untouched. And look, remember, their starters are not free agents. So if they want to move a starting pitcher, they have to trade them. We've heard Kodai Senga's name. We've heard David Peterson's name. They have not been traded. They have not signed anybody. Now, keep this in mind. The starting pitching free agent market has not moved fully. We've seen, in my opinion, 2 names come off the board so far that we would have any level of interest in. Michael King and Dylan Cease. That's pretty much it. Like, if you look at the other starting pitchers that have come off the board, I don't think any of them really fit the broader discussion of changing this rotation in a major way. So, luckily, not a lot has changed in terms of guys coming off the board, but it's the same. Like, it's the aspect of the team that probably needed to be altered the most has gone completely unchanged. You don't have to like the bullpen moves. You certainly don't have to like the offensive moves, but it's at least different. There's a different look to both aspects. Nothing has changed with starting pitching, and I wrestle with, all right, what are they actually going to do? Like, I lean more towards Skubal not being dealt before the season starts, that will probably be a July 31st trade, or they just don't trade him and free agency hits a year from now and we'll see what happens. I don't know about Freddie Peralta, but I've been skeptical about them trading him inside the league with the Brewers still trying to compete. So where is the change in the rotation coming from? Are they going to sign Framber Valdez? I told you at the beginning of this pod, I doubt it. They're linked to Ranger Suarez. Okay, to what extent? So that's the aspect of the team I look at and say, what are they actually going to do to change the part of the team that probably gave them their most issues a year ago?
What if I told you, and this is going to be, people talk about my lame comments. Well, this is the lamest one. What if I told you you get 1-year deals? Chris Bassett, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. Go for it, baby. I could see that more likely than a Tarek Skubal trade.
Yeah, but think about this with the Met rotation, and I'm not trying to put them on a pedestal because, again, they were the biggest reason for their failures in the second half of last year. They've got a lot of that, right? They've got Sean Manaea, who could bounce back and have a really good year. They have David Peterson, who for the first 75% of the season was really good. They have Kodai Senga, who, when healthy before his injury, looked like one of the better pitchers. We all love Nolan McLean. They've got studs who probably start the year in the minor leagues, and Jonah Tong and Christian Scott and Brandon Sproat. Like, if they're adding a pitcher, it has to be more of the certainty. It has to be either an ace, or if it's not an ace, a guy who brings certainty to the rotation. I think Bassett brings a little bit of it, but Justin Verlander certainly doesn't. So that's not what they need. They need certainty or an ace. And that's the only thing that really alters this rotation in a major way.
What's more likely? And this is an honest question. What's more likely? An ace or Jonathan, Brandon Sproat, and McLean?
I mean, right now, probably the youth, because an ace needs to become available. And is there a guy in free agency who, A, they deem as an ace, or B, a willingness to go to an uncomfortable area in free agency to sign? And so far, that answer is no. So the state of the Met offseason, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm not telling you to panic. I'm just telling you that it's not great. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to give you smiles and roses. I'm also not going to tell you it's definitely going to end horribly. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves the way all of us are. But I don't know, man. This has been a rough offseason so far. It has not been fun. All right, let's get to the mailbag. We have a lot of thoughts to get to, whether it's some of the Ricos we've recently done, plus other topics. You could always email us, thericob@gmail.com. And one thing we've tried to do throughout this offseason, and we're certainly doing today, is give you that live mailbag on a Friday night if you consume it on YouTube, or Saturday morning, wherever you download your podcast. And, of course, you can download the Rico Brogna wherever you download your podcast. Let me go to Matthew. Matthew put together his top 10 Brandon Nimmo moments. If you missed that edition of the Rico, check it out in the archives. Let's see how many of them we agreed with. Let me start with number 10. I should go backwards in his case. Number 10 was his first home run against the Chicago Cubs at Citi Field. I was in the ballpark when Nimmo hit his first MLB home run. It was a 3-run bomb, and it made sitting through the hour-and-a-half rain delay that happened completely worth it. Yes, that made our list. Good one. Number 9, every time Brandon Nimmo sprinted to first base after a walk, this was his thing, his calling card, and what endeared him to me and many Met fans. To me, it's the thing that I think about when my future grandkids walks up and asks, "Hey, Grandpa, who's Brandon Nimmo?" And I'll say, "Who? Oh, yeah. He was the guy who played for us that used to sprint to first every time he got walked." That's a good one. We did moments, so that was not there. But absolutely, when you think of Brandon Nimmo, you think of the guy that sprints to first base. Number 8, the 9 RBI, 2 home run game against the Washington Nationals in early April series in 2025. This dominating performance by Nimmo gave the 2025 Mets a 20-9 record, having all of us believe the 2025 Mets would cruise into the playoffs. That was on our list too. Number 7, go-ahead home run in the ninth against Arizona in 2018. My memory is a little fuzzy on this one. I know it happened, but not sure of the exact time. Anyway, it was the first really clutch moment of Nimmo's career. That was on our list too. I'll send Matthew thinking alike. Number 6, the walk-off single against the brand-new Phillies closer, Johan Duran, in a big August series at Citi Field. A nice clutch moment by Nimmo that would solidify a series win and set up the eventual sweep of that series. This series sweep left the 2025 Mets just 5 games back of the NL East and surely set up a thrilling NL East divisional race the rest of the way. That's what we thought. It did not work out that way. That was on our list as well. Number 5, pinch hit walk-off home run against Atlanta in an early May series at Citi Field in 2024. If I remember correctly, Nimmo didn't start the game, came off the bench because he was dealing with some sort of injury. Every win in 2024 was huge. Massive respect for this one. That was on our list as well. It was not a pinch hit home run. He came in, I think, as a pinch runner a few innings earlier, and then, yes, hit the walk-off home run against Atlanta. Number 4, game-tying single in the ninth to complete a 7-run comeback against the Phillies in early May series of 2022. That was very high on our list. I'm trying to think. Did I put that as number 1? It may have been. I remember Nimmo putting a really good at-bat together and hitting a Corey Knebel curveball in a center field. The comeback set up an impressive early season run that would propel the 2022 Mets to have a 10-game lead in the NL East by June 1st, resulting in many New York sports pundits to declare the NL East is over. There was only one pundit that did that, all right? And he still doesn't live it down. Number 3, robbing Justin Turner of a home run in a September game against the Dodgers at Citi Field in 2022. Electric reaction from the crowd after the moment, only to have Timmy Trumpet give us a live performance later in the game that definitely did not come back to haunt us. It didn't come back to haunt us. I don't know why Met fans think that. Like, I thought the performance was fine and had nothing to do with the fact they played mediocre baseball throughout September. It's not like Edwin Diaz collapsed. So I don't have an issue with that. Number 2 on Matthew's list, 3-run bomb in the 8th inning, game 161 in Atlanta. Big home run. Thought the game was over, but as we know, Diaz made sure Lindor had his moment in the 9th inning. We had that up on our list. And number 1 for Matthew, agreeing to waive his no-trade clause. Let's be honest. The contract is terrible, and him choosing to leave is the best thing he has done for the Mets. I hate to be that guy, but it's true. What a swerve by Matthew. He gives us all these great Brandon Nimmo moments and then ends it by saying, and the best one was him saying, fine, I'll leave. Brian writes, hey guys, Brian from New Mexico, first time, long time. Enjoyed suffering again with you and fellow Met fans on the yearly worst loss pods. However, there were a few key details in games I think you missed that are etched in my skull from the August and September from hell. Okay, let's hear it. August 4th versus Cleveland. You missed the detail about Mets third base coach Mike Sarbaugh failing to send Tyrone Taylor on Lindor's double in the bottom of the 9th to potentially win the game. As I recall, there was a lot of discourse, pissed off fans about this failed send that later led to the loss in 10. That's a good call by you. Sometimes I forget that stuff. I need to be more detailed with when I write down bad losses for all the reasons it was a bad loss. August 9th at Milwaukee. You covered the series in detail, but to me, the Saturday game was the worst of the 3 losses due to the Ryan Helsley blow-up in the 8th inning. After Stanek blew the game, Isaac Collins reached on an error by Beatty to make it a 5-4, still manageable game, maybe. And then Helsley had a pitch clock violation on the first pitch to Contreras, which appeared to be an out to end the inning. Then on the next pitch, Contreras hit a 2-run homer to make it 7-4. The error plus blown game pitch clock violation into a home run made it the worst of the series. Yeah, that sucked, and it was bad, and I remember it, but even thinking back on it, the outfield assist to end game 1 and just the slow death of game 3 to me is still worse. But good call. September 21st for Washington, the Jacob Young game. Need I say more? Circus catch after circus catch, which culminated in him robbing the game-tying home run off the bat of Alvarez. This was the most frustrating loss because they had it, but it was robbed by that quadruple A freak. Here's to a better, less error-ridden, and less blown lead-filled season in 2026. Good call, Brian. A lot of details. We did a 2-part Rico going through all these horrible losses. It took a combined 2.5 hours if you go back and listen to it. And yet, there's still so much we missed, including this point by Lance. Lance writes, I can't believe you skipped this one. David Wright Day. Beautiful Saturday afternoon, building packed against the Reds, who if we beat, we would have made the playoffs. Juan Soto with a chance to have his Met moment with 2 out. And as the tying run, he's having a Juan Soto at bat, shuffling, nodding, and cranks one into the second deck, a foot to the right of the foul pole. Then Mendy, in all his brilliance, decides to give the pitcher a chance to relax and collect himself by challenging the foul call. And of course, after the long delay, Soto strikes out. Most painful for me had to be that last Saturday game against the Nationals, though. Yeah, the David Wright Day sucked, man. I think also the excitement of honoring David Wright, and it's supposed to be a fun, good day. It's supposed to be a happy day, and it gets spoiled with a frustrating loss to Cincinnati. Christopher writes, Evan Hoffman, thank you for putting together that 2-parter of worst losses in 2025. But I have to tell you, those segments in sequence made me physically sick. Reliving those games, hearing the lowlights was like jamming needles into my eyeballs, kicking me repeatedly in the crotch and or pulling my fingernails off. Doesn't that make you feel good, Hoff? Did all that great research, getting all the audio for Christopher to basically say he got kicked in the nuts by all of us?
Well, just imagine gathering that audio. Like, and here's the thing too. And Evan said this, that there couldn't be any positivity in those 2 podcasts whatsoever. So I actually had positive highlights of like the Mets coming back from like certain deficits and whatnot. And we're like, let's scrap that. Let's just get to the point.
Well, I mean, partially it was because the 2-parter took about 2.5 hours. Like, did we want it to be a 5-hour 2-part podcast?
Could have been a 5-parter. Think about that. One of the worst seasons in Mets history, we would have a 5-part episode of the worst losses of all time.
Well, I'm glad you said that. One of the worst seasons in Met history, because Christopher goes on to say this after listening to that 2-part podcast, which, by the way, if you have not listened to, I think that would be episode 611 and 610 if you want to check it out. Christopher writes, the one conclusion that came to my mind was that if I was on that team, those 23 losses would have torn my heart and I would have hated showing up to work every day. I may have also hated my coworkers. The worst losses segment also made me realize that 2025 is clearly the worst season in Mets history. Unlike crappy seasons like 1962 through 1968, or 1977 through 1983, or 91 through 93, or 07 to 14, or 17, 18, and 23, which were all pretty horrible, but not nearly as frustrating as 2025. The early blown leads, the out-of-control innings, leaving guys on base, no clutch hitting, all gut-wrenching, deflating, and nauseating. Maybe Stearns is right to dismantle this group. It can't get any worse, right? And that's from Christopher. Or he signs it Chico B. I think last year, and by last year I mean 2024, I'll go back a year and a half, was such an amazingly fun season that I remember we did Rico's where we talked about, is this the best non-championship season in Met history? And we did a whole Rico about it, talking about 1999 and 2000 and 2015, which was my personal favorite. And it's amazing that the following year could be argued as the worst season in Met history. So I'm going to give you a few that jump out at me, because I do agree with Christopher, or Chico B as he signs it, that the bad seasons are just bad. When you suck, you suck. So I don't know how many bad seasons I would list. In fact, most of the bad seasons become very forgettable and you don't remember a lot about it, unless it's really bad, like 1992, 1993. So the years that pain me the most, I would say 07, 08, clearly. The collapses, the collapse of 07, the missed pennant race and deja vu of 08. 2017 was really bad. And they were a bad team in 17. The reason I include that is because of what happened in 15 and even what happened in 16. The Mets were ravaged by injuries and yet still managed to make the postseason. So the thought was going into 2017, especially with Cespedes coming back, and the idea that, well, DeGrom will be healthy. Syndergaard was unbelievable. Lugo looked good. What's the other guy I'm thinking of who pitched well and ended up in our bullpen? My God, I can't remember the name. There's another starting pitcher who pitched well in 2016. Anyhow, I'll get to it in a second because I'll pull it up on Baseball Reference. But there was a thought of 17 will be such a big season because of what happened in 16, that they made the playoffs despite those injuries. And they went out and they lost 92 games. It was disastrous. The guy I was thinking about was Robert Gazelman. Gazelman pitched well in 2016. Him and Seth Lugo were a couple of the fill-ins along with Bartolo Colon and Noah Syndergaard that kind of helped that rotation. The other year is 2019. And I think as time has gone past, 2019 actually looks worse because the Washington Nationals, who only won, how many more games did the Nationals? So in 2019, the Mets won 86 games. They also blew so many. The Nationals won 93 games. So they were separated by 7 games in the standings. And the Mets were only 3 games behind Milwaukee, who ended up getting the second wild card spot and played the Nationals in that infamous wild card game. But the Mets had so many games led by Edwin Diaz that they blew, including the Kurt Suzuki game against the Nationals, and so many bad losses. Remember Dom Smith dropping a pop-up at San Francisco? Like, there were so many of them that even all these years later, it's been 6 years, I think of 2019 as a missed opportunity. They won 86 games. They should have won 92. And who knows? Maybe they play the Nationals, beat them, get hot, and they're the miracle team of 2019. I think 2022 in a lot of ways, because of the way it ended, is up there. The disappointment of 2023 is certainly up there. Do I put 2025 above all of those other years? Here's what I think is going to help determine this. And I know this is the cop-out answer, but in fairness to Chico's point, what makes 07 and 08 worse is that they ended up in the wilderness. They never figured it out. If the Mets, despite an offseason none of us are loving right now, have all of their young players develop at the right time, and 2026 turns out to be a really special season, I think that would make 2025 less painful. More on the bad losses. Anton writes, Evan and Hoff, you guys discussed the loss to the Nationals on the recent Rico episode, and you said it was the worst loss of the season. Yes, the Saturday game at Citi Field against the Nationals was what I deemed as the worst loss of the 2025 season. I agree with you fully. The entire game was a comedy of errors. Alonso's fielding, making Nolan McLean miss the bag. Cedric Mullins failing to catch the inside the park home run. Tyler Rogers throwing it. Alonso and Lindor being hit by pitch. Soto striking out, looking to end the game, et cetera, et cetera. What I wanted to point out is that to cap off this Rube Goldberg machine of a loss, it was one of the select matches Ryan Helsley came through in. I really thought we were going to win when he shut me up and came off the mound after one walk, scoreless, hitless innings. Instead, I was lied to. It was a trick, a dessert oasis that turned out to be a mirage. Well written, Anton. Witnessing this in person showed me that God did not want the Mets to win. Thank you for your time. Well written. Mark writes, hey, Evan, obviously everyone thinks about the June 13th game as the start of the downfall. So I did about 3 minutes of digging to find something that could sicken every Met fan. Anthony DiComo, after every Mets game, a final, but at the end of the tweet has the win or loss streak and the pace of the Mets. I don't think this requires any further explanation. Here you go. All right. So he's sending me Anthony DiComo's tweet from June 12th, 2025. Mets 4, Nationals 3, winning pitcher Kodai Senga, losing pitcher Michael Soroka, save Edwin Diaz. The Mets held on a sweep a second straight series, but lost Senga to an apparent leg injury. The record is 45-24. Their win streak is 6. Their pace is 106 wins and 56 losses. I don't know. What are we blaming? That Anthony DiComo said they were on pace to win 106 games? I mean, they were. They were. I don't blame them for that. I don't think any of us thought they were going to win 106 games, but I think we felt comfortable in their mid-90s, high 90s, and being a playoff team. Tim from Bridgewater writes, Evan, at first I didn't want to listen to the worst losses because why relive it? As an optimist, I wanted to hear the greatest games of the year. With David Stern's preaching defense all offseason and the moves that he has made, I thought, why not look at why we lost? So many of the losses you played were pitching imploding, yet he has not signed or traded for a starting pitcher. The position players who made the game-losing errors are all still here. Brett Beatty, Juan Soto, and Francisco Lindor were all featured in terrible losses. This offseason is so frustrating. I feel like David Stern's gutted our team and has done very little to address the holes like starters, center, left field, and first base. He has time, but he's losing fans. I know this because my 3 kids told me they will not go to Citi Field this year, at least until June, and only if they have a winning record by then. Of course, as a crazy Mets fan who took your advice, I'm booking a trip for me and my wife to go to Toronto and Niagara Falls. I'll be there regardless. Good job, Tim. You used a few Rico Brognas to your benefit. The Niagara Falls trip, which I advised a few episodes ago to see it and then watch Mets Blue Jays. And then obviously doing a deeper dive on the losses and thinking, hey, some of the guys who contributed to it are still here. I think it is very convenient if we're trying to make ourselves feel better to say that because the Mets had such a brutal collapse and such a brutal final 90 games, whatever it was, that they needed to do what they're doing. They needed to put a wrecking ball to the team. And I get that. But I also look at things and say, are they better? Where have they gotten better? And that hasn't happened. Forget Diaz for a second, because I'm willing to at least suspend disbelief and say, hey, the bullpen's different. We know how good Devin Williams can be. We know how good Luke Weaver can be. Edwin Diaz is getting older. Maybe this is going to look like a genius move by David Stearns. I don't believe that, but what I'm telling you is I'll suspend disbelief and put that aside. While they have improved their defense at second base by bringing in Marcus Semien, I cannot say they have done that anywhere else. And it doesn't mean they needed to replace Juan Soto. Juan Soto's the right fielder. It is what it is. He's not perfect. Hopefully he gets better. But their first base situation is still cloudy. Right now, the guy who's going to play first base is a guy who's never played it before. Doesn't mean he can't be good. We've seen Wilson Contreras become good. We've seen Bryce Harper become good. But they've clearly, I don't want to say gotten worse defensively at first base. I would just say they've answered no questions at first base. The outfield, I mean, they need to be better in left field with Brandon Nimmo. We don't know who the left fielder is. So there's a lot of incomplete to kind of improving the defense that you talked about and getting better. But yeah, to your point, it's an incomplete offseason, which is why I don't want to go nuts about it because it isn't over. But I also know in this moment, in the first week of January, you start to say, okay, well, what are you going to do that's going to make this work? By the way, I have been criticized by many listeners that I create too many AI songs. We did get an email from a fan of the Rico Brogna who created an AI song talking about how depressed he is as a Met fan. Hoff, do you want to hear that song today? Like, is this something that we should listen to now, or should we hold it off for future Rico Brogna?
So what is this? Which song is this?
The AI depressed Met fan song created by JC, one of our loyal listeners.
Oh, geez. I do want to hear this.
Do you have it ready to go? Do you want to listen to it?
I do want to listen to it. Hold on. But where did you send it to me again?
Oh, come on. Forget it. You don't have it. It's okay.
I dropped the ball.
The guy put it on YouTube, which I thought was pretty cool. And then I sent it to you. So I don't remember when I sent it to you. I apologize. But if you don't have it, no big deal. We'll get to other emails. If you have it by the end of the episode, we'll give JC his due. And we'll listen to an AI-created depressing Mets song, which is just amazing. Anyhow, let me read some more of your emails. This guy thinks he is the one bringing curses to the New York Mets. All right, let's hear from him. Randy writes, "Hey, Evan, I think I might be cursed when it comes to seeing the Mets live. I moved to Florida in 2002 at the age of 13, and until this year, I've only been to Citi Field once. In 2009, Johan Santana versus CC Sabathia, the Subway Series. This year, I finally decided to go back. By the way, I don't remember that game at all. And I guess that tells you what the Subway Series has become, but that's such an appealing pitching matchup. Johan Santana versus the first year of CC Sabathia. Like, that sounds amazing. And honestly, I'm kind of curious to go to Baseball Reference and find out something about that game. I'm going to do that now, actually, before I continue your email, because 2009 is a weird year. There are certain losses that you remember. The Luis Castillo game, which was at Yankee Stadium, not Citi Field, obviously. In LA, when Ryan Church missed third base. The Omir Santos game jumps out at me. All right, so here we go. I think he's remembering wrong, because I found CC Sabathia against Mike Pelfrey on Friday, June 26th. Yankees scored 4 runs in the second inning, had a 4-0 lead, blew the game open late. They won the game 9-1. CC 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, no walks. Mike Pelfrey started for the Mets, 5 innings, 6 hits, and 4 runs. So maybe the reason I don't remember the game is it didn't exist. That's okay. Our memory plays tricks on us. It's all right, Randy. Anyhow, Randy goes on. This year, I finally decided to go back. I waited and hesitated because, honestly, this team hadn't earned it. Then after the Mets swept the Philadelphia Phillies, I said, screw it, and booked a flight and tickets in the Hyundai Club for the September 20th disaster against the Washington Nationals. Of course, that's the game I pick. Fake comeback, missed chances and extras, inside the park home run, Juan Soto striking out, just brutal. I typically go to a game or two in Miami every year, so because I clearly didn't learn my lesson, I went to game 162 with a friend who's a Marlins fan. She's an awesome person, and I almost certainly ruined her day. I had to try and be nice, all while experiencing unimaginable pain and frustration. What a terrible mistake. And just to really drive it home, my only other Mets game in 2024, you ask? Miami. Edwin Diaz blows a 9th inning, 4-run lead with a Josh Bell home run while I was doing a hot dog and beer fantasy football punishment. At this point, I'm starting to think maybe I should never attend a Mets game again. Randy, never attend a Mets game again. Because it's one thing to lose games. It's another thing to be at those kinds of losses. Like, those are the losses you remember. The Josh Bell game with Edwin Diaz, Saturday. It was a Saturday 4:00 game, and Bell hit a bomb to center field. That was brutal. I still remember the feeling I had. The feeling that I had watching that game. By the way, I do want to say something that I haven't talked about on the air. It's not something I'm going to bring up a lot, but I want to bring it up here on the Rico. You guys are a family, and it's Mets related. Last week, I had to say goodbye to my dog, and it was brutal. The great Dudley, who's been with me since I adopted him from North Shore Animal League back in 2012, and it was painful. I cried myself to sleep basically 5 days in a row. It's been tough on the family. If you're a pet owner, you know how difficult that is. And so what I've tried to do over the last few days, because my wife's like, this is a good idea, think of the positive moments you had with that wonderful, cute dog. And so I did. I thought about adopting him. I thought about him running around. I thought about that crazy story in Long Island City where he goes up to another dog, lifts his leg up, and pees on him. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, Dudley, you're peeing on another dog. And then I thought of the moment I freaked Dudley out the most. And I told this story to my wife because she was sleeping. We had just gotten married. It was game 1 of the 2015 World Series. And I'm sitting in my apartment in Long Island City, watching the game, scoring the game. We all remember where we were for games like this. And my little Dud was sitting on the ground, very comfortable in his little doggy bed, looking up at me like, Dad's watching. He's watching the Met game. Data points. Seems okay right now. Seems kind of nervous. I'm hungry. I'm going to go get some food. I'm going to go play with some toys. And when Jairis Familia did that freaking quick pitch, and he gave up the game-tying home run, I remember 3 specific things about that moment. I remember getting down on my hands and knees and smacking the floor. And this has become a family, Rico, so I really don't want to repeat the word I said over and over again, but it starts with an F and it rhymes with muck. And so for the sake of keeping it family friendly, I'll use that word, muck. I was screaming, I'm going to reenact this after that game-tying home run, game one of the World Series, and I'm going to bang on my table, so it may cause a lot of shaking. I just want to recreate the moment. Muck! 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 And the look that my little dud gave me, the eyes popping up, the look of, what is happening? And then he sprints away into the bedroom. I don't know why I thought of that, because it isn't a good moment. I guess it's just a reminder that your dog and your pet is always with you, even through the horrible moments in life and the great moments in life. So I wanted to share that. I don't know why I wanted to share that. I wanted to get that off my chest. Anyhow, excuse me. I'm not crying, by the way. I'm just, my throat is sore. I promise you. Kevin writes, guys, I'm in the minority. I'm in my early 40s and baseball is my favorite sport. It might be hyperbole, but I think there's something to the claim that baseball fans are dying at a faster pace than they're being born. I got my wife to become a lukewarm Mets fan in 2021. All she knows is Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo, McNeil, Diaz, Marte, Soto, and Beatty. She also knows Brandon Marsh because she thinks his long, greasy hair is disgusting. But I digress. She is currently unaware that half of the players she knows are gone. I'm planning on hiding the 2026 Mets from her because I don't think she'll give a crap about baseball or the Mets anymore if she finds out what happened. This is a problem. I'm a hardcore fan and my interest in 2026 is quite low. I expect that new fans that the Mets have cultivated over the past couple of years might not care either in 2026. I expect ticket sales at Citi Field to be the lowest in the Cohen era. I want baseball to be loved in America again, but in recent months, Stern Cohen have undoubtedly made it less popular due to less marketability and recognizable faces, even if it's for only a portion of one market. We resemble an expansion team more so than the Mets we know and loved. That's an interesting email, Kevin. I thought you were going to talk about baseball in general, not being that popular. But in terms of what you brought up with the Mets, I think that assuming nothing big happens for the rest of this offseason, nothing surprising, and this is similarly what they are going into spring training and opening day, I think you're half right. I think you're right about ticket sales. I think you're right about the ballpark maybe not having the same juice or energy it had a year ago because there's clearly less confidence, less swagger. But we have seen far worse than this. And I know that's kind of tough to believe, especially if you've listened to these Ricos and you heard the pain in my voice in terms of losing Alonso and losing Diaz, especially on back-to-back days and, thinking back to the other long-term Mets they couldn't hold on to. I'm still bothered by it. I'm still angry by it. But when a season starts, and I know I'm only speaking for myself, but I do think a lot of people will agree with this. You go into a baseball season with hope. And this Met team, even in an offseason that's going to leave us wanting more or leave us pissed off, will go into next season with a future Hall of Famer at shortstop, with a generational talent in right field, and with oodles of position player prospects that are either going to make the team out of spring training or be a part of this team this year and next. And, oh, yeah, they may have a future ace in Nolan McLean. I am not saying that to spin what the Mets are going to be in 2026. I'm just reminding you that we've seen worse. Going into the 2012 season, what'd you think? Going into the 2013 season, what'd you think? Going into the 2020 season, what'd you think? Going into the 1997 season, what did you think? And by the way, that was a good year, but they were coming off a year in 96 in which they lost over 90 games and had 3 historic seasons from offensive players. This is not me trying to spin anything because I got no reason to, but we have seen darker days. There have been other seasons in which I would have less hope that they're going to be a contender than the one that they will likely bring to spring training in 2026. And that doesn't mean I love the offseason, and it doesn't mean I'm predicting them to win the World Series. It just means that there is a lot more hope for this team than we've had in past years. So I can't speak for your wife and how she feels about it with half the guys being gone. And certainly there are some kids, as we read in previous emails, are going to say, I don't want to watch this team. Pete isn't here. That guy isn't here. But this team will have a chance to be good and exciting. And if they're good, people will come. It's the whole line from Field of Dreams. People will come.
I found that song to make us really depressed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the Ballad of a Depressed Mets Fan as created by loyal Rico Brogna listener, JC.
Seven-line dance, old cap on my head, hometown hero on my wall, kept me dreaming in that bed. Thought this year we'd finally have a shot. I have a say, then they let my favorite walk like he never even played. Got these blue and orange blues in a ballpark full of lies. Ownership counting pennies while they sell us hopes and vibes. They shipped off all the heart we had, traded joy for empty seats. Cheap suits in the front office, breaking every fan they meet. Two fan favorites gone now, packed their bags, changed their hats. They were all we had to cheer. Now they're highlight reel flashbacks. Best damn ninth inning hammer, let him stroll out of the door. But the bargain bin is loaded with old Bronx cast-offs by the score. Yeah, they say there's a big plan, say to trust the little moves. But that plan's just a coupon clip to save on all these ones. Got these blue and orange blues in a ballpark full of lies. Ownership counting pennies while they sell us hopes and vibes. They shipped off all the heart we had, traded joy for empty seats. Cheap suits in the front office, breaking every fan they meet. Hey, David, you ever sit in the cheap seats in the rain? Watch a kid hug his new jersey, then you trade away the name. You can spin it at the presser, call it value, call it smart, but you can't sell hope in April when you've stripped out all the heart.
Wow. That was unbelievable.
I'm feeling it, dude.
I got to tell you, JC, I'm almost very jealous because I've created many AI songs, and some of them have been good. Some of them have been awful. Maybe some would argue most of them have been awful. That one may be pound for pound one of the best. It's got a good sound. Like it's a country song I would listen to. I would rock out. And the words were powerful. The words sent the message. That was great stuff by JC. I want to hear from the people because people usually don't like AI songs. And I totally get why. Because we have such great musicians out there that are like, screw this, man. I want the real thing. And of course, we'd all prefer the real thing. So if you want to write a ballad of Met Depression, send it to us. I guarantee we'll play it. If it's real music, I promise you. But I'm curious if people like that song. Are they going to download that? Do they want that on Spotify so they can have access to it?
I got to be honest, man. I couldn't put it any better. Like he said some things that I've been like feeling in my soul, and he put that to paper. And thank you for that.
Good job, JC. Good job, JC. Put a lot of emotion in that. Coming up on the Sunday Rico Brogna, that's if you consume it live on YouTube, probably around 10 o'clock at night, so you may want to set your clocks. Actually, probably later than that because I want to watch Ravens Steelers. So let's say at 11:30, late night Rico Brogna. And of course, you can download it on Monday morning. We are going to do our Rico rewatchable on Game 6 of the 86 World Series. Hopefully, everyone had an opportunity to rewatch that game. I did during the Christmas holidays. We've gotten a lot of emails with people opining on the game. We will break it down. We've got a lot of audio from the game. Plus, one thing I'm very excited about, whether you watched the rewatchable or not, you are going to get to hear the Bill Buckner play. We've all heard the Bob Murphy call. If you rewatch the game, you heard the Vin Scully call. We are going to give you the national radio call, courtesy of Jack Buck, and the Red Sox call of the Mookie Wilson, Bill Buckner play. And I don't know how many people have heard those calls. I sent it to my dad a few days ago and said, have you heard those calls? He had not. So that is certainly something to look forward to on our Sunday night, Monday morning, whenever you download the Rico Brogna, the rewatchable of Game 6 of the 86 World Series. A lot to discuss, a lot of cool things you will hear, and we will go into the time machine of 1986 for the Rico rewatchable. So make sure you download and subscribe to Rico Brogna, and you will never miss an episode. You can catch me at 10 a.m. beginning on Monday. So I guess that's a late night, Hoff. I guess we'll be staying up late doing it, and then I got to wake up a few hours later. But you know something about that, and now I'm about to find out, or at least remember what it's like, because I did that for 13 years. So it's not that unfamiliar. Either way, we appreciate you listening and downloading another edition of the Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.